Back in February, at the Kickback Ranch Cowboy and Cowgirl Reunion in Raymer, Alabama, Doug Simcox and I sat down for a conversation that most folks never hear. Not the stories, not the guests, but what actually goes on behind the scenes. The recording, the editing, the gear, and all the little things that can go sideways when you're trying to build a podcast on the road. This one's not polished, it's not dressed up. It's just real talk about the work that happens before you ever hit play. Hey there, fellow wanderers, and welcome back to the Wandering Gypsy RV Life podcast. I'm your host, Stan Cromlish, author of the Rolling Smooth RV book series, coming to you from somewhere out on the open road with my trusty companions, Birdie B and Rosie. This podcast is where the RV lifestyle meets real stories from the road, the lessons learned along the way, and conversations with people who live this life in their very own unique ways. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and let's see where the road takes us today. Today I am here with Doug Simcox of the Beyond the Chutes podcast, and he and I have been talking a lot about what it takes to build a podcast, build a video following, and do all of the work you have to do, from recording to editing to uploading it to our RSS feed for the audio podcast, and then updating it and uploading it to YouTube. Doug, what is your process after you've recorded a podcast?
Well, number one, get it up. I use Audacity. I bring it into Audacity for my editing.
Okay.
And I use it primarily to set sound levels. And when I record, the recorder I use, the record that I use, I should say, is a Zoom P4.
Okay.
A podcaster. And I just got the new P4 Next.
Really?
And have started to experiment with that a little bit.
Okay.
And I like the sound on it. It had some additional features over the older P4, that like compression and tone and that sort of thing. So being able to modify the sound just a little bit to get it to your liking at the point of recording. But back to your question, I bring it into Audacity. And I bring it in, if there's 4 people sitting at the table, I have 4 different microphones, I have 4 different channels.
Okay.
So I can affect changes on each and every one's channel. And it's not unusual to have a louder talking or a louder sounding or whatever on a particular mic, and then somebody who maybe doesn't talk as loud.
So I know that when you and Sam are recording, you kind of have to turn the volume up a little bit on Sam.
You do. And there's a fine line to doing that. If I turn him up too much at the box, at the recorder, then I can get what's called mic bleed. To where when I talk, it gets picked up on his microphone. Not the end of the world, but what it does is it starts then to give kind of an echoey kind of a sound.
Right.
Doesn't sound great. So a lot of times in post-edit, or what I'll do, I shouldn't say post-edit, post-recording, in editing, I will bring his channel up generally in Audacity, which is all digital. Everything we're doing is digital. There's no tapes. As much as we say we got a tape recorder, no, you've got a digital recorder. But we'll bring that in and shape it however we want to shape it, and then we will, I keep saying I will save it as an MP3.
Yes.
And move it into Descript. Okay? And Descript is the main editing software. And I went up on it probably a year and a half ago and probably cut 60 to 70% of my edit time out.
Right.
You use Descript. You can probably talk about it as well as I do.
So, yes, I use Descript for the audio portion of my podcast. And yesterday I was talking to Kevin McCabe, who has been editing video since the 90s. And he talked about the reel-to-reel video actual tape. Like, you know, not it's linear editing where you actually cut the tape and then you splice it all back together.
Yeah.
Which leads to folks to remember this old saying that ended up on the cutting room floor, and that's where the bad tape always ended up, or the scenes that they got cut out ended up on the cutting room floor.
You bet.
But everything we do now is digital. You record to an SD card in this case, we're recording video. So both of our cameras have SD cards in them. We're recording today at Kickback Ranch and Event Center, Friday, February 20th, just before the annual Cowboy and Cowgirl reunion.
Absolutely. Second year for me.
And it's second year for me too.
Okay.
And
matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, you and I met for the very first time here.
Yes, we did. And I blame you for getting me into the podcasting and the video and the the Wandering Gypsy RV Life brand that we've now done I've done about 36 episodes since I started.
Yeah, and that's a lot. And you started it in March?
In March of 25, I started.
Yeah, and we've recorded together before.
We did.
You know, they can go back. What was the one? You Better Be Handy.
Better Be Handy. That was in June or July. It was in June in Billings, Montana.
Billings, Montana. So what a lot of folks may or may not know, you and I mean, you live full-time in an RV.
I do.
I spend a lot of time driving around the country in an RV.
Right.
A lot of the recordings I do are in the RV, and I was just reminded some of the challenges behind the scenes as your air conditioner kicks in.
Right.
Or your water pump kicks in, or your washing machine kicks in.
Well, luckily the washing machine isn't running today, but you will hear a little bit of air conditioner noise. Maybe, maybe not, depending on how our mics do.
But that's what makes it real.
It does.
You
it
know?
makes it very real.
Yeah.
And it's, the sharing of stories is really why we do this. You sharing rodeo cowboy stories of guys who went up and down the road 30, 35 years ago. Me, I'm sharing the story of how to live the RV life without really losing your cool.
Exactly. And boy, yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to lose your cool.
There is. I mean, when you came in, I've got a cabinet over there that's open because we had a water leak. I'm waiting on today's rain to figure out what happened there. If my pastry chef version of sealing actually did the job.
Sure. So back to where you started us, Descript.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about your experience with Descript.
I have found Descript to be very good, and it cuts the editing time in half, mainly because you can pull out all of the ums and the ahs, and I caught myself about 3 minutes ago doing an and an ah.
Right.
The ability to edit that out but not lose the flow of the podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those filler words that it edits out for you. And the fact that you can export it, and I seldom use Audacity, but I have found in Descript a setting that you can actually set the gain on what you export. And I really had to figure that out when I was recording my audiobooks. Because when I uploaded them to ACX, which is Amazon's Audible channel for distribution, it didn't like how it came out of Descript by default. It said it doesn't have enough gain in it.
More volume.
More volume is what it required. So I've tweaked with the settings in Descript and was able to export the audio files, and now I've just left that as my default setting for even the podcast.
Yeah. Okay.
Because it needed to raise it about 3 decibels.
Yeah. And that's what's been cool about working with you, our collaboration on these projects. I learned an awful lot. You're an IT guy.
Yes.
I'm not, but you know an awful lot about this stuff, and that's been super helpful. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And I think you're venturing now into video. You're just a smidge behind me in getting started on the video. I know social media these days, it's all about getting those 9x16 vertical shorts, vertical reels, short hooks up, because that's what people are looking for, and that's what drives traffic.
And we need to drive a bit of traffic. You're really, the way we look at it, the way I'm looking at it, is kind of the reels kind of invite them to a party, right? Come sit, have a seat, have a listen. Here's 20 seconds, you know, and maybe it's enough that somebody goes, oh, that's interesting. We ought to go check it out.
What are your drawbacks and what are your concerns about doing video for your podcast, your reels?
And just starting now into video, as you said, and the biggest challenge is the workload, right? The storage that's required when I do this. And if I'm on the road, it's not impossible to go shoot 2 hours of video. I need to swap out SDI cards, or I need to get those up saved somehow.
Right.
So I've just built out the infrastructure at the house over the last 2-3 months, where I have the ability while I'm on the road to push the video in a hotel room, to push the video up to the cloud, and then that cloud populates those videos on my NAS, my local server at the house.
Right.
Overnight, or whenever it does it, you know, all the magical things that happen after dark.
Right.
So something like that, just storage, and then starting to edit and trying to pull that all together. And if you're going to go video, you've got to do what you did, which is develop your bumps and develop your main title screens. Boy, I'm telling you, audio is just so much easier.
I find, quite frankly, I recorded a 1-hour podcast yesterday. It will take me the better part of today to get that edited.
Yeah, to do an hour.
But once I get it edited, and before I put my bumpers in, I can export the audio and then pull that into the script, fix my transcript so that I've got Kevin lined up and Stan lined up and your speakers are lined up and all of that. I've done several lately like that. I did Chick Wilfong about a month ago. I did Garrett Yerrigan 2 weeks ago. And I did Bill and Laura Eglin. I've done 2 or 3 of those, and then I did Kevin yesterday. One of the things I am finding is you ask a question, like you ask me a question, and you have to give them space to let them complete the entire thought.
Yeah.
Because these mics pick up every
They do, absolutely, yeah. And that's the skill of interviewing, right? And we're both continuing to build that muscle, and it is a skill. So we continue to practice it and that sort of thing. So what do you do after you've edited your show, you like it, you've exported, it's an MP3 now, if it's audio, or an MP4, if it's video, then how do you begin to get it out into the world? What's your process?
My process is I go ahead, you and I both subscribe to RSS.com, which is our podcast distribution platform. So the first thing I do is I always pull the transcript, look through the transcript to get good episode notes and good chapter breaks. So when I pull a transcript, I pull it with timing so that I can go through and pick natural chapters, because in an hour-long video like I did yesterday with Kevin, I want to make sure that you can add the chapters in YouTube and it gives people a chance to tap on that time stamp and go directly to him talking about whatever we were talking about in that chapter. And in the audio version, I was listening to a podcast yesterday that they had set chapter breaks. And my screen on my CarPlay showed the chapter name for that section of that podcast, which is really, really cool. I mean, I didn't think about doing that, but I can see where it's helpful if you're listening to a podcast like I was yesterday and somebody said something that piqued my interest. I could go right back to that and listen to it again to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yeah.
So do you put chapters in RSS? You know, you can click that button and set chapters, but you actually have to have the timings so that you know where each section break is, or each chapter break is.
Right. And no, I hadn't been on audio at all, not at all. I'm just starting to experiment with it on video.
Okay.
And of course, when you're talking video, you're talking YouTube primarily. And really had been putting the shows that come out on Spotify or Apple Podcast or wherever you're picking up your audio podcast, had been uploading those via RSS to YouTube.
Right.
And it's just audio only.
Yep.
So harder, people don't think of YouTube to go listen to a podcast audio.
Well, I saw something recently on YouTube's Creator Studio. I created a podcast playlist, and you can now get audio podcasts on YouTube, and it's just like whether you're using Apple Podcast or Spotify or Audible, you know, any of the big podcast players.
Okay.
You could do that on YouTube, and it will give them the playlist for YouTube podcasts.
Okay.
So
well, I should look at that.
You should look at that.
Should look at that. And while we're doing the edits, I typically, and I think you're doing the same thing as you're doing the edit, whatever you're working into script or whatever, you're looking for those quick little pops, the reels, the shorts, and of course, the shorter is better.
Yes.
Quite frankly, we're finding, 20 seconds, 25 seconds, maybe.
11 seconds.
Yeah,
like I did an
yeah.
11-second video the other week of it snowed here in Raymer, Alabama, which is it doesn't normally snow.
Yeah.
In Raymer, Alabama.
Yeah.
I did an 11-second short that got 5,000 views.
Yeah.
And all I said is, the wind is whipping and the snow is flying here at beautiful Kickback Ranch and Event Center in Raymer, Alabama.
There you go. And the reels, the reason we're doing the reels, quite frankly, I said this earlier, is kind of an invitation.
Yes.
Come check out what we're doing. I don't produce any content that has reels in mind. I don't go out and go, let me go shoot some stuff that'll work for reels.
And I don't either.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, even when I had the water leak up top, I didn't shoot any video because I am, with the Wandering Gypsy RV Life, just like Beyond the Chutes, is a storytelling brand. It tells a story. Your podcast, the last one I listened to was I just started Quiet Enough to Ride with Tyler Waltz and another rodeo cowboy. And
with Raymond Hostetler. Yeah.
Yes.
And Sam was there too.
Sam was there too. Sam is your co-host.
Yeah, that's right.
So having a co-host, you've got two people who can come up with the ideas. Whereas in my case, I am solo everything. Kevin and I talked about this yesterday. Yes, I could set up 2 or 3 or ever how many cameras and do it that way. But that makes it kind of difficult.
Yeah.
Because you've got to pay attention to production.
And that's the number one reason I've stayed away from audio.
Video.
It's the number one reason I've stayed away from video.
Okay.
And that is, I don't want to sit here when I'm talking with a guest and I'm trying to pay attention and be engaged and follow along enough that I can ask the right questions.
Right.
I don't want to be worrying if the battery's going to go dead.
Yes.
Or I don't want to worry if I don't have enough room on that card and it beeps in the middle of a pretty important segment.
Pretty intense segment.
Yeah. So, and just for me, keeping it simple, right? Now, I am messing with video a little bit, but I'm moving into that pretty slowly.
Yes.
Intentionally. I still, if I'm going to do one of our long form interviews, which is 90% of what we do.
Right.
I'm going to set up the podcaster. Now, the one thing I have done is I have moved away from the desktop mic,
right,
and I've gone to lapel mics.
So I have two XLR lapel mics that I can use with. I've got the same device you do. It's the PodTrack P4 by Zoom. It's not the Next. I don't think I will be purchasing the Next because I'm moving away from audio, doing more video. So I've also invested in the DJI Pocket 3 camera,
which is what we're recording.
Which is recording on today.
Times two. We actually have two.
We have two.
And can I give a plug for Parasite System?
Absolutely.
Okay, our main, our only sponsor, been with us since the beginning. Eric and the team down there, they lend me some gear. The Pocket is one of the pieces that they lend me, and they said, here's what you need. Go forth and record, young man.
So I have a question about that. So Parasite Systems has been with you since almost the beginning of your podcast.
Yes.
And they take care of you as a sponsor of Beyond the Chutes. So what does Parasite Systems do? Give us a plug.
Well, it's a wonderful company in Lexington, Kentucky, and they have what is called the all-in-one system.
Mm-hmm.
And what the company started doing was you could take a fecal sample from a horse,
mm-hmm.
put it in their machine, do a little work with the solution, in about 5 minutes, know what kind of parasites you have in your horse.
Okay.
What kind of worms you have in your horse, how many eggs per gram, how infested they are, how much of a shedder they are. And the whole concept is, let's stop treating every fall and every spring like we've been doing, because what's happening is these bugs they're forming resistance.
And that's the same thing that's happening in the world with these viruses and bacteria and all of that.
Yeah.
So Parasite Systems is a veterinary company that
they are a supplier to vets.
Right.
Yes, absolutely, to vet clinics.
Yes.
Yeah. And typically what would happen, you would either have somebody there doing it through a microscope, literally counting, mm-hmm. trying to identify and counting the number of eggs. Not a great job to do.
No, and it is probably tedious.
And pretty low percentage of getting it right. I mean,
right.
it's just the way it is. Or they would send it out to a lab. And now with their machine, they're able to, within 5 minutes, they're able to come back and tell you exactly what you have.
And that's Hemocyte. At the end of your podcast, I hear you rattle off.
Well, they've expanded. They've, number one, they started just in large animal, cattle and horses. The equine industry is what they went after. They're Lexington, Kentucky, right?
Which is horse country.
And they've they've made a change, and now they are in the small animal market.
Dogs,
cats, chickens. I mean, and not only that, they can do, now beyond parasites, they can get into some of the hemostat, or what are the words?
Hemocyte is one of them, and that's the only one I remember.
There's a bunch of them, and they can do all kinds of tests while you're there. And the whole point is, you now have what you would normally send out to a lab. You now have the ability to very quickly get a picture, understand exactly what you're dealing with.
So they use a lot of AI, artificial intelligence, to do a lot of this now.
Yes. I mean, it's what's counting.
Right.
You train the AI to identify the larva or the egg, and then you teach it how to count it.
Right.
And it can distinguish between this one and that one.
So if you have hookworms and roundworms,
Yes.
which are two major worms in large animals, it can tell you that in this sample I saw 1,500 hookworm eggs and 1,800 roundworm eggs.
Yes.
In this one little sample. I'm making up numbers, Doug.
Yeah.
But that's what it does.
And yes, and in horses, how the parasite moves or how it infects another is when the horse goes poo.
Right.
And it hits the ground, eggs are shed. And over time, those eggs get in the grass, and the horses eat grass, and
it's the cycle.
It's a cycle. So they go in, and they test, and they say, okay, we can look at this horse, and they say something like, if there's less than 200 eggs per gram, don't do anything. Don't treat them. They're fine. They're okay. And then you look at the ones that are 200 to 800 or something like that, eggs per gram, and you would treat them. And then you would look for those that are over 800. And we've seen some high numbers. They've shown me high numbers where it can be up in the 1,500, 1,600 eggs per gram. And those are what are called high shedders, meaning they're putting a lot. Doesn't mean they're more infected or anything. It just means they're the ones that keep that cycle alive. So you go in and you treat them just like you do the others that need to be treated. You then come back and you treat them. And I think it's 3 weeks later, you come back in and you test them again.
Okay.
Now you see what was the efficacy.
Right, of the treatment.
And it's no longer going to Tractor Supply and picking out a tube and go, well, I haven't used this before, or I used this 2 years ago, so I'll just rotate it in. It doesn't work like that. So knowing exactly what it is you're infested with, you can talk to your vet, and your vet will say, this is what I want you to treat.
Right.
And you got one, he's a high shedder. We want to treat him just like you are the others that I'm going to tell you to treat, and then come back and test, and we'll know how's the drug working, and if we need to do more, we'll do more at that time. But we want to be very specific about what we're doing.
It helps bring in to focus the right treatment for the problem, the horse or the cow or the pig or the chicken, what they have as far as parasites. And parasite is spelled Parasight because it gives you a sight picture of what's going on with your large animals.
Absolutely. And now they've got that all-in-one machine that does a number of tests, small animals, large animals, you name it. And they've got a whole suite of products they can get into now, blood work and all that sort of thing.
Right.
I mean, they can come in and set up a whole lab. And what's so cool is Eric and his team over there, I've seen the earlier prototypes. You know, it definitely was a garage, kind of an entrepreneurial start.
Right.
Kind of like Apple was.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's been fun to watch them grow. So no, they've been with me since I think they were on show number 4, show number 5, something like that.
Oh, wow.
We brought them in very early in the process, and they're just a great company. I've done business with them and got to know them as a team, and their values match what we're trying to do on the show. So
you know, I haven't signed any sponsors yet because you and I've talked about this. One of my concerns about signing a sponsor is, will they tell me what I can or cannot say or post? You know, like I was talking yesterday, and that person has to drive a specific brand RV.
Right.
Because
they're sponsored
by
Yeah.
So Kevin and Patrice McCabe, RV There Yet, are sponsored by Winnebago. So they drive a Winnebago RV.
And if I was their sponsor, that better be your main focus.
Right.
It better be your main focus.
And I'm in a Tiffin. You're in a self-made bus. Beyond the Chutes bus.
Self-actualized.
Self-actualized, yeah. That's probably the better word for it. But I haven't signed any sponsors because I want to retain my editorial privilege.
Yeah. And as I said, with Parasite, the values line up. It's just been a great partnership.
Right.
Go do what you do, Doug, they say. They help me go down the road and help me with equipment, as I said. And
Yes.
they're just great partners.
Yes. Yes. And it's, it truly is a partnership.
Yeah.
And that's what, would I like to have a few sponsors? Yes, as long as I don't lose editorial control.
And there is that too. Yeah. And if you're approached by a sponsor, you make those decisions in the moment.
Right.
You look at what the offering is, and if it makes sense.
Yes. And I'm going to do a shameless plug right now myself. The products that I recommend on the Wandering Gypsy RV Life, which is, we're giving you a behind-the-scenes look today. The products I use in Birdie B and my RV are products that I purchase with my own money. I've not had any sponsors step up or
give you
business
product or whatever.
Right. So every product or every service that I recommend are products and services that I pay cash for.
Yeah.
Because that to me keeps my integrity. If one of the folks, the Clean Tank, which is a tank cleaning service, after they educated me on how to keep my black and my gray tank clean and flowing smoothly, I highly recommend Clean Tank, and I pay for their service.
Okay. It's the right thing to do.
Yeah, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
I use the Clean Tank formula, which you can make yourself. It's pine sol and calgon. I believe I've given you some of that.
You have. You've given me the recipe.
Yes.
So we've used that, absolutely, going down the road. And nothing worse than having black tank smells while you're trying to record a podcast.
Right.
It can be distracting.
It is pretty distracting. Or, I'm in a Tiffin. I use a power watchdog to protect my power. Do you use a surge protector, Doug?
Asked me this before, no, and we are going to get in on another show.
Yep.
We're going to do, I want you to help me on some of the upgrades I need to bring.
Yep.
I've had the rig on the road for about 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to do a little modernization, I think.
That right there, that's the part most folks never see. The behind-the-scenes work, the trial and the error, and just figuring it out as we go. And honestly, this was a good one. Doug and I have taken what you heard here, recorded in Birdie B, and what Doug has learned from his Beyond the Chutes bus, and started building something cool around that. Because whether you're in an RV, a toter home, or a living quarters horse trailer, you're dealing with the same systems and the same need to keep things rolling smooth. So we've teamed up on a new podcast series that we've named Cowboys and Cowgirls Rolling Smooth, which brings rodeo travel and RV life together. And we hope you will tune in and listen. Thank you for riding along with me today for this episode of the Wandering Gypsy RV Life podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with a fellow traveler so more folks can find us out here on the road. You can find more stories, photos, and adventures over at wanderinggypsyrvlife.com. If you're looking for gear that helps keep your rig running right, check out Techno RV through my affiliate link at technorv.com. They really do help you adventure more and worry less. And if you enjoy cowboy storytelling and rodeo history, my good friend Doug Simcox hosts a great podcast called Beyond the Chutes, which is well worth a listen at beyondthechutes.show. If you'd like to dive deeper into the mindset behind this lifestyle, you can check out the Rolling Smooth RV book series at Wandering Gypsy RV Life.com/rolling smooth. Until next time, keep your rig rolling smooth, keep your coffee hot, and remember, sometimes the best repair isn't just the one that fixes your RV. It's the one that quiets your mind. Safe travels, my friends, and remember, not all who wander are lost.